All right, hi everyone. I'm just going to give it a couple minutes so people can join us. So just bear with me as I figure out what to do with this as well. Okay. Hi, Kate. All right, so I'm just going to go outside. Okay, we're back. Good. Okay. All right. I'm going to try this once more and just show the outside before I go in. Hopefully I don't lose connection. So this is my barn. And I'll just wait a couple more minutes before I get started. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Megan Veldman. For those of you that don't know me, I am located just outside of St. Mary's. I am an egg farmer and I farm full-time with my family. And today I am going to be taking you on a tour of my farm, which I'm super excited about. If you guys have any questions for me, don't be afraid to ask them, and I will try and answer them as soon as I see them, or I will get to them at some point in the tour, hopefully. So I guess I'll start by telling you guys a little bit about myself. As I said before, I farm full-time with my family. My mom and dad and my twin brother are full-time on the farm. And then my younger sister helps out whenever she can, either after she's done work or on weekends, which I appreciate because she does my chores for me. And yeah, where do I start? I guess I'll start with post-secondary school. So I went to the University of Guelph and I studied animal science. And I graduated from there in 2013, and I didn't start farming full-time immediately after school. I worked off farm at a feed mill in St. Mary's, and then I had the opportunity to come home and work full-time with my family, which I'm very thankful for and very fortunate for, because I know that's not an opportunity that everyone gets, but I absolutely love it. And so what I do on the farm is I look after the barn that I'm going to be taking you guys on a tour of, and I essentially look after this farm all by myself, which is actually pretty cool, and I don't usually need too much help. Which is really nice. A lot of it's automated, but whenever I do need help, I have my family to come out and help me whenever I need it. So that I'm very thankful for. But so I guess I'll start taking you guys on the tour now. So this is the front door. I have a stop sign that this just lets people know that biosecurity is in effect, which the sign says. I do have a lock on the door, and that is to keep people out because I want to know who's coming into the farm, and that's for the safety of my flock. I need to know who's coming in and out, just to ensure that they aren't picking up any illnesses or any diseases. So I want to know who's coming in. So once I'm in, I usually spray the bottom of my boots just with Lysol. That's just something that we do here for biosecurity. And then, so I've got a line here. So this line is where I need to be putting on my barn shoes, which are Crocs and extremely comfy. Don't knock them. And then this is also where I get changed. So I'm not actually going to be getting changed. I'm just going to put coveralls on. So just one moment while I do that. How many generations has your family been farming? I will be the second generation egg farmer. And gosh, I don't even know how many generations of farming has been in my family. My Oma and Opa immigrated from Holland and started farming dairy. And then my parents switched to eggs and pullets in, I think it was 97. So there were a few generations before that too. Second generation egg farmer, I would say maybe fifth generation farmer, but I'm not exactly sure. Okay, so now that I have my coveralls on and my barn boots, we can go into the actual barn. So I go through one door. This is my office. This is where I keep all of the paperwork. It's all in here. I have a lot of record keeping to do. Like, these binders are essentially full of information from each flock. And then I also have our security. I have a few different cameras set up around the barn, and that is again for the security of the flock and just for me to know what's going on around here. I get notifications sent directly to my phone if certain cameras detect motion, so then I can see what's happening here, which is actually really nice. And something that we implemented, because we did have a break-in a few months ago, unfortunately, where someone broke in and stole some tools. So I think it's especially important for farmers to have cameras and security like that. So why did my parents switch to eggs? At the time, well, first they initially did both, so they were doing dairy and egg farming. They had 4 young kids, I think under the age of 7, and we're within 5 years, so there's 4 of us kids. I have a twin brother, a younger brother, and a younger sister. And when my parents were doing both, they just found that they were making just as much money with the eggs with less amount that they needed to be on the farm. So they made the choice that they were going to switch completely to eggs so that they could be there more for our childhood. And just like we were all in sports, we all played hockey, we were all in extracurricular activities in public school. So yeah, they just decided that they were going to completely switch out of dairy and get into egg farming. And yeah, that's kind of how that happened. Okay, so back to the tour. So I'm in the actual egg room now, so I'm gonna turn it around. So this is the egg packer. This is where we collect eggs. And I will turn this on in a little bit, but I'm not gonna turn it on now, but I'll just kind of show you guys. This is where all the magic happens. And I guess I'll start with what I do when I first come in the morning. So when I'm first coming in, I am doing records. So I'll just turn this around again. So I've got handwritten records because I like to see everything written down. And these just have on the feed weight. So we have weigh scales on our bins. And I can subtract the weight from yesterday morning at the same time to tell me how much feed the birds were eating the day before, and then I can divide that by the amount of birds to get how much grams per day those birds are eating. And that's a good indication for me that everything is on track, that they're getting the nutrients that they need. And if that number is too high or too low, that's the first indication that something might be wrong and that I need to look into it further. For example, if that number is too low, then there might be a hang up of feed somewhere. There might be a chain somewhere in one of the feed troughs that is off, or like one of the rows might not have get fed. There might be something wrong that I need to like investigate further and make sure that the birds did all get their feed from the day before, because you kind of want that to stay around, these birds is around, I would say 100 to 110 grams per day. Yeah, so that's the first indication that something is wrong. And I'm getting asked what they eat, so I did grab a sample. So this is what their feed looks like. This is a mash, and we make our own feed, so not all poultry feed is gonna look like this, but essentially I like to tell people it's essentially cereal without the milk and the added sugar. You've got corn, wheat, soybean meal, we have roasted beans, and then supplements with vitamins and minerals. That changes depending on what stage of lay they're in and how old they are, just to make sure that they are getting all of the nutrients and vitamins and minerals that they need. Okay, so back to my records. So another thing that I look at, and actually I'll turn this around again. Okay, so this is the screen that I'm looking at. So you can see these are my two bins, and these are showing the weights of each bin. So this is the bin that I'm looking at right now that is turned on. When it gets down, which it will at some point today, I will switch it over to the second one. So I kind of have to keep an eye on this number. When it gets too low, I need to make sure that I'm around to be able to switch it to the next one so the birds don't go out with feed. So that's something, I usually change that about once a week. So that's one thing that I keep an eye on. Another thing that I'm doing with my records is checking the water number. So it's shown right here, and then it's also shown in my history of water meters, and I can see how much water was actually drank the day before. So this is something else I keep an eye on. And another area that would tell me if it was too low, that there's a problem somewhere. So that's another important thing to look at, because it is essential that your birds are getting enough feed and water throughout the day. So something else that I look at when I come in the morning is temperature. So I'm looking at the maximum and minimum temperatures. It has been a little bit warmer because it's been so hot out, but you kind of want to make sure that those stay within their respective limits. So right now I would say it's around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, with it being so warm. Okay, so what other? And then I also look at, every morning I come in, I do a walkthrough. So I'm looking at the birds, the equipment, I'm making sure that there is actually feed in the troughs, I'm checking that the water is running, I'm feeling the air, making sure that there's lots of air movement, that it's not too stuffy in there, that the ammonia isn't too overpowering, that it doesn't feel too hot or too cold, that the birds look good, that they look healthy, that they're standing up and singing like they normally would when I go in there. And just kind of paying attention to everything as I'm walking through to make sure that it feels normal. So when I am doing that, I'll do it in the morning and then again in the afternoon, and I will mark down any mortality that I have, which unfortunately you do have livestock, so you will have dead stock, and it's important to keep track of that. And those will be numbers that I write down daily. It's not, you won't get too many, but it is a number that you will have. I would say most flocks will be way under 2% mortality rate. But that's just another area to keep an eye on. And if there is, you know, you go through one day where that spikes up and is really high, then that's something that you need to look into. Okay, what's going on? And if you do have an issue, you can take those birds to a vet and have them look at them and let you know what's going on and what can be done to fix that. Okay, and then, so something else, which I'll take you guys into the cooler. So this is where the eggs are kept. So this is, my eggs are picked up once a week on Thursdays. So this is almost a full week of eggs being collected. I'm getting about 2.5 skids per day. So this is a skid right here. So I'm getting 2.5 of those a day about. And then they'll pick those up once a week on Thursdays, which will be, I do have a lot of room in here. We did leave a lot of room so that if we do expand in the future, I have lots of room for more eggs. And these eggs, like I said, they're picked up once a week. When they are picked up, they'll go to the grading station, and then they are washed and packaged and graded and sent to grocery stores either that day or the next day. So they say the average time that your egg goes from farm to grocery store is 4 to 7 days. So it's a pretty big turnaround. And I think most farms, I know my home farm are picked up twice a week. So it just depends on where you are and how many eggs you have, how often you're picked up. Okay, back to, so this is just an area in the barn where we keep all of our extra plastic, is what I call it. So we've got our empty trays that need to go into the egg collection machine, and this is where the eggs are put into, and then where they are stacked down here. And then you've got your bottom parts, which is right there, and then the dividers, which is right there. And the dividers, which you can kind of see used here, they'll go in between the layers, so you can stack, I think it's 5 layers high. So I'm getting asked why eggs in Canada need to be stored in the refrigerator. For anyone that's been overseas or to another country that doesn't refrigerate their eggs, it's not very common, I guess anywhere, but I think North America and maybe a few other countries. But that is because we wash our eggs. We want clean looking eggs. We want them to be washed. So when you're washing your eggs, you're washing a protective coating that the hens put on those eggs, and you're washing it off. So then bacteria can get in, because eggs are very porous. So then in order to keep those eggs fresher for longer, you need to refrigerate them. If you didn't wash that off, you could keep those eggs on your countertop, no problem, without having to worry about bacteria getting in. And yeah, you wouldn't have to refrigerate them. But once they are refrigerated, you need to keep them in the refrigerator, because they will age faster if you do pull them out. Okay, so I guess since I'm taking you around, we've got our sink here. Wash your hands before you collect eggs. That's a food safety thing, which makes sense. This is just a room where we keep all of our water stuff, washrooms. This room, so this holds the generator. So the generator, for those of you that don't know what a generator is, this kicks on automatically when the power goes out on our farm, which is pretty essential. And I need that to happen because if the power goes out, the ventilation won't be working and the feed won't be working. So I need that to come on so that the bird's environment is the exact same regardless of whether the power is on or not. So that will turn on automatically, and yeah, that's just a good peace of mind for me, knowing that if anything happens, that kicks on. And I guess since I'm talking about the generator, I'll show you. So this is Sensiphone. So this is my alarm system. This calls me if anything is abnormal on the farm, and I can set those and program those parameters inside of that. So for example, I have temperature controls at the front of the barn and the back of the barn. If the temperature goes above what I set it at and below what I set it at, this will call me and let me know what the temperature in the barn is. And also if water pressure dips or if there's a power outage, and if my iTouch control, if there's something going on with that lets me know if there's a problem anywhere. And that gives me peace of mind because I can't be on the farm 24/7. It's just good to know that when I'm away from the farm, there is an extra set of eyes, I guess you can say, that's looking out for the welfare of the birds. And yeah, so it will call me and let me know, and then I can get to the barn right away and make sure that everything is good or change things if something needs to be changed. And especially if the power goes out, this will still call me even though the generator kicks on. It still calls me to let me know that the power went out, and it will let me know when it comes back on. But then I can just make sure that the generator is running because it still requires fuel to run. So it's not automatic. Problems do happen, but I still need to make sure that it does kick in automatically. So that's a good peace of mind. I guess now I will show you. I'll see if you guys can see. Okay, so this is inside the barn. I'm gonna go down a little bit further. I will actually go in, but I thought if I show you guys through here, the birds won't get as scared. So right now we have viewing windows, which is what I'm looking through inside the barn. It's a little bit loud in there, so I don't want to go in there to explain everything, but I will go in there once I'm done just to show you guys up close. But I think you can see the birds. And then, so this system I have here is called an enriched system. You've got a nest box here on the left with the red curtains. The birds, I don't know if you can see it, but I'll show you once you go inside. There's perch bars so the birds can stand on them. Those are to mimic like branches in the wild that birds would stand on. We've got in-cage light or in-colony lighting. There's water is underneath the lighting at the back that the birds share with the other side. And then they're separated from their manure, which I think is it's a good part of this system because you can separate the birds from their manure, and that gives us the opportunity to get rid of that manure. So it's on a belt that goes to the back, and I get rid of it 2 times a week. I'm cleaning out on Mondays and Thursdays, which is my least favorite job. It sucks. But it does make sure that the air quality in the barn is really good, and I can feel, if it's been 4 days or even 5 days, the ammonia levels get really intense, and it does make me grateful that I can get rid of that manure, because if I'm having problems breathing, that probably means that the chickens are having problems breathing too. So that's a really good perk of having an enriched colony system like this, and also that they are off the floor. I can remove dust, so I do sweep throughs. I do that 3 times a week, and that just allows me to get more of the dust out, which also makes the air quality good and makes things just look nice and clean. So now that I've explained that, I will go in the barn just to give you a better view. The birds might freak out a little bit, so I'll just have to wait for them to calm down. And I will try and go slowly. So this is inside the barn. So, and depending on what system you have and what the measurements are determines how many birds you can have in a system. So in mine, I think I can have up to 25, but right now I'm not completely full, so I'm at 24. So you can see the red curtains is the nest box. You've got the perch bars are the white parts. There's a scratch pad that you probably won't be able to see. And then you've got the lights and the water just underneath it. And then you can see the feed trough that the birds eat out of. And then you can see, like, it's gross, but it's there, like where they're separated from their manure, which is really nice because that, you know, also decreases illness and disease. And then, okay, so you can also see that the eggs hit this wire. So we call this an egg saver. It lifts every so often. You can change it, and the eggs roll out. It's just a little bit more gentle than then completely rolling down and crashing into other eggs and cracking. So that just decreases cracks. Impact cracks is what we call them. And you can see, because the birds are separated from their manure, just how clean these eggs are, which is really nice because we're going to clean them anyways. So eggs roll out in front of here. Most of the eggs will be laid in the nest box, and they will be laid in the morning. So as you can see, there's tons of eggs, because they usually lay within 4 or 5 hours of the lights coming on in the morning. So they come out onto this egg belt, which you can see here, this yellow, and then I'll just follow it up. So when I turn the egg collection machine on, the eggs will come up here onto these yellow cups, and then they'll go up onto up here, which I don't know if you can really see, and then they'll go onto this conveyor, which goes into the egg collection room, which will bring the eggs in. So you can see where they come through, and then they'll come down through here. I know you can't really. They'll put them into these cups, and then the cups will fill down here. So I am gonna start this. I won't be able to have it on for too long, but because I can't be in 2 places at once. But I will start one row just so you guys can see it actually moving. And I'm gonna go back into the barn so you can see it actually moving. Okay, so here the egg belt's turned on, and you can see them moving towards this elevator. Actually, I'm just gonna speed this up. Okay, so there they are. It's going up. Up. And I'm gonna come back here. See that. Okay, so there it is. and then come into the actual egg collection room, which just will take a little minute for it to actually come in. Just gonna shut the door. Okay, so I'm going to, so this moves, as Diane says, slowly. It handles the eggs gently. If it is breaking or cracking eggs, then that's an indication that it needs to be serviced and looked at, because it shouldn't be breaking eggs. So right now I have my indicator light on. So this lets me know that there's a problem somewhere, which usually means that this sensor, I have sensors here, that it needs to be adjusted. So now it's working. So I just need to wait for some more eggs to come. And this is all censored, so there's sensors everywhere. You need to have all 6 spots full in order for it to advance. And I do have this sensor here. If the eggs get backed up to here, it shuts off the conveyor, and that's also just to prevent more cracks from happening, to make sure everything's handled as gently as possible. So how has technology changed over time? I'll answer that while we're waiting for this to fill up. So eggs used to be collected by hand. I have 25,000 birds in this barn. I don't want to be collecting eggs by hand. That's just, no, there's no way. I'd be here all day. I have had to do it if the packer isn't working, and trust me, it's not a fun day. So I'm very thankful that we do have technology to be able to collect like this. You can see the eggs going into the cups, very gentle. It does miss the odd one, which you did see. And then I can just fill those spots up here. I'll keep, an empty egg tray up here that I can fill those spots, which is not a big deal. So I guess I'll show that again. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do of that. I think that gave a pretty good overview of how the egg collection process works. When the eggs do come down, we will stack them. You have to switch out what way they're going so they sit on top nicely and they don't crack what's underneath. And then we'll put them over here with a tray on top just to protect the top eggs. And then you can put a divider between it. And something else I'll mention is we separate the double yolkers from the regular sized eggs. So you can tell these eggs are a lot larger. They are separated. That's just to prevent them from getting cracked by eggs throughout. And I will put these on the very top of the skid. Just to make sure that they aren't getting cracked. And they're pretty easy to pick out. Like I'll try and get them when they're on here. As you can see, like you can tell that that's a larger egg. So I'll pull it off. I'm kind of going back and forth between the packer and stacking eggs, just to keep everything in order. Another thing I will mention is if there is a crack on the packer and you have a leaky egg with yolk, it's important to get that off and wipe it down. Egg is almost like it's sticky like glue. So if yolk is sticking to an egg, you want to get it off as soon as possible before it dries, because those eggs it won't come off in the wash very easily. so it's going to get thrown out anyways. So I usually just wipe it down with paper towel. We can't do any on-farm washing, so no water touches egg here. I will, just if I do get yolk, wipe it off because it is very sticky. And I do have down here, I got a nice little label for it, a waste egg bucket. So any cracks that I get or any really dirty eggs that aren't going to be cleaned at the grading station, I'll pull off and put in the bucket. Yeah, and then I'll put that, I have another bucket at the back of the barn, and that just gets composted with the manure on Mondays and Thursdays. Yeah, so another question, why did I study animal science in school? I started out in biological science. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went to school. I didn't even know, even though I'm in agriculture and a farmer full-time, I had no idea that like how much opportunity there is within the agriculture industry. And I didn't really know until I went to Guelph about the agriculture program, which is, I find bizarre and crazy. But once I got there, I found out about the ag science program, animal science in particular, and I switched majors in my second year. And I mostly chose animal science because I loved animals and science, and that gave me an opportunity to learn about things that I was interested in. I did take, I think, one poultry specific course at U of G, and that was poultry nutrition. But other than that, I think for being a farmer, you don't really need to be educated, but it's a good to have, and it's good to get out and meet more people in the industry and learn about science and nutrition. And yeah, it's good to learn, it's good to have. There are courses you can take once you're in the industry. So I have taken like a poultry handling course that's specific for poultry handling, as the title suggests. Yeah, so that's kind of why I liked animals, I like science, so I took animal science. If I could go back, I'd maybe look at taking a business course, because I think business is very essential to farming, and I do a lot of the books now, so that's also something that interests me. Another question, how have you worked with food banks during COVID-19? So something that ag farmers has been doing while this whole coronavirus, COVID-19 has been happening, has been donating to local food banks. So ag farmers is usually pretty involved in donating to schools, and obviously that program isn't happening right now because school's not on. So we still want to help out, and because that isn't there, we thought, well, why don't we donate eggs to food banks? So we've been working with Egg Farmers of Ontario to get eggs out into the community. And I know for a while there, they were really hard to find. So I think that a lot of people were very grateful that they could get eggs from the food bank. And I think we've been trying to get eggs out to as many places as we can and as need be since it's happened, like every week. So that's been cool just to see the impact that has had, and also good to help people out that need it. And that's something that not just myself or Egg Farmers of Ontario, but also my family is very passionate about. And I think we have a responsibility as farmers who are very fortunate to work in this industry to give back to the communities that we're a part of. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna end it off. Thank you so much everyone for watching. I'm gonna post this video so you can watch it again. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm gonna try posting more on my farm account, Meg V Farms, and just to educate everyone, because yeah, this has been fun. So thank you so much, everyone.